Welcome in, everybody, to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast. I'm your co-host, Billy Musia. With me, as always, partner in crime, Jody Smith. We're talking the conference championships, Jody. We have the 49ers, we have Philly, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Kansas City Chiefs. The latter game has seen the line flip-flop a couple times now. The SF and Eagles game has remained pretty consistent. My Niners are coming in as 2.5-point dogs. Who do you got this week?
Well, first off, I need to address something that Scott tweeted, I think, before last week's show when he said that we were going to break down, a Niners fan versus a Cowboys fan. And let me just state for the record, I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm not a Cowboys hater. Down here in Houston, you're supposed to be one or the other. You're supposed to really love them or hate them. I grew up sharing a room with my brother who was a huge Cowboys fans. He's around that age, and I was always an Oilers guy. But I feel like the NFL is better when the Cowboys are competitive because it gives somebody to hate. Of that said, Billy, we talked at length last week about what a fun rivalry it was 30 years ago between the Niners and the Cowboys, and it's the first game, and I know we're going to disagree on this one because another point we made last week was, the difference when you become an analyst and you start doing this more, sometimes your eyes tell you something different than what the numbers and the data and the facts tell you. And in this case, though, I'm going with the eye test initially was what my thought was, because the Eagles, let's face it, they've been the best team from day one throughout the football, other than, the little run they went on at the end of the regular season when they were banged up because Jalen Hurts was either hurt or missing the game. Absent. They've pretty much dominated every game that they've been in. And in this particular case, I really like Philadelphia. I feel like you're getting points. Well, okay, a field goal. So they're not getting points, but they're only favored by a field goal at home. They're actually favored by, 2.5? So
2.5, yep.
From a Vegas standpoint, that's telling us that Vegas feels like on a neutral field that San Francisco is barely ahead of the Eagles, half a point. And that may be, maybe the case. Like in this case, what are the Niners have won, 12 consecutive games?
Yep, largest team in football right now.
They've been fantastic since Brock Purdy took over. 8-0, I believe, is their record.
Can you please call him the GOAT?
We'll see in a few days. They've averaged 32.25 points during Purdy's run. It's been great. They've been 9-1 against the spread in their last 10 games. You're talking a team that's got a top 5 offense along with the number 1 defense. But when I started looking at things, I found it really interesting that I want to give you the chance that you can defend Brock Purdy, but I will say that he's been extremely fortunate with the scheduling during his run. He's had 6 home games. Mm-hmm. Of the 8 games he's played at home, his only trip to a real hostile environment was in Seattle, and that was his 3rd game, and he was, okay, and nothing great in that particular game. They won. They also traveled to Las Vegas, but let's face it, that was a de facto home game for the 49ers because more than half that crowd was probably rooting for the red and gold. So I have some questions how Brock Purdy is going to do in such a hostile environment. We know how amazing, I guess that's the right word, don't want to offend anyone, Philadelphia's home crowd can be, and this is a defense that plays, a very strong zone defense with fantastic cornerbacks. The Eagles, they ranked number 1 against the pass all throughout the regular season. They also led the NFL with 70 sacks. So this is a defense that's going to be able to not only disguise coverage and confuse Purdy, but they can get after him too. And I have some concerns about Purdy's ability to, beat this defense. And I feel like the Eagles have been, they were 7-3 against the spread at home this season. And 2 of those losses came here at the end of the season, like I said, when Hurts was either hurt or limited. And you look at this series, some other things I looked at. The Eagles have won 7 out of 10 against San Francisco. Now, granted, that's going back multiple years, but they've also covered the spread eight of those 10 games. And again, to me, it's coming down to I feel like Philadelphia is probably the better team here. I understand San Francisco's been playing better over 2+ months, but it feels like the Eagles should, in my view, should be able to win by a field goal plus. So that's why I'm taking the favorites. Now let's hear your contrasting take of this game.
So it's interesting. So if I was betting money line, I'd feel less confident in the Niners winning. And I'm a Niners fan, but let's set my biases aside. Okay, let's approach it. Let's approach it from an analysis standpoint. I do think it's going to be a pretty heavily favored defensive matchup. The over/under comes in this game at 46.5. I'm going to be taking the under on this. Both these defenses are outstanding. So let's start with Philadelphia. Philadelphia's defense right here, total yards in the last 10, they've ranked number 2 in the NFL. Passing yards, they've ranked number 1 in the NFL. Rushing yards, 16th. We all know they're beatable on the ground. That's where teams have been attacking. We talked about that last week as well. Points scored, they're 8th in the league right now. Takeaways, they're 3rd in the league for the last 10 games. Going over to the Niners, total yards, 1st. Passing yards, 20th. We talked about that last week too, that the Niners secondary has been their weakness, though it's disguised because their front is so good. Rushing yards, 2nd best in the NFL. Points scored, 1st best in the NFL. Takeaways, 2nd best in the NFL. So both these teams have the opportunity to, 1, take the ball away, 2, stop the other opposing team, which both these teams are also electric in my opinion, which is kind of gives me that hesitation to bet the under against this matchup. But we saw what happened last week, another big defensive stand between Dallas and the Niners, right? We saw that under hit. We look at the offensive side of the ball now. So let's start with the Niners here for the last 10 games, total yards. So this is pretty much Brock Purdy stats. Total yards, they're 5th in the league. Passing yards, they're 13th in the league. Rushing yards, they're 8th in the league. Points scored, 6th in the league. Turnovers, 3rd in the league. Philadelphia's side now, very similar. Total yards, 3rd in the league. Passing yards, 9th in the league. Rushing yards, 5th in the league. Points scored, 3rd in the league. Turnovers, 5th in the league. So both these teams don't turn the ball over a lot. They're both putting up yards. They're both putting up rushing stats. They're both putting up points scored. That being said, man, it's hard to remove the biasness here.
It's fine. I appreciate that you have fan interest in the team. I kind of miss that.
Yeah. So the fan interest in me says Niners are going all the way. I think that this matchup is going to be tougher than the Super Bowl matchup, whether it's Mahomes or whether it's going to be, Burrow and Cincinnati. Because I think that this defense testament is going to be the biggest test for the Niners and for Brock Purdy, right? We look at this hot streak that Purdy's been on, and last week he was definitely exposed, right? He didn't have the same pizzazz he did last week because this defense played him much harder. That being said, Shanahan even said that he changed the kind of game plan going into that game to be more conservative, and we saw. In my opinion, it didn't quite work. So I'm hoping they go back to some of the original game plans and go for some of the more big playability and let them play ball. That being said, we do have a tougher defense. And I think that this is going to be, again, the toughest matchup that Purdy has seen. We said that last week. We're saying it again this week. I do think they can pull it out, although this one is more of a coin flip to me, where last week I was pretty confident that the Niners were going to win just because I believed in the defense, where now we have 2 very stout defenses. I give the slight edge to the Niners. This is non-biased. This is just purely analytical, even though there's a bunch of red and gold behind me. I do give the slight edge to the Niners. That being said, remember when Christian McCaffrey was traded to the Niners, and I made that $50 bet. It was like $55, something like that. I forget the exact dollar figure, but it pays out a little over $1,000. They've offered to buy it back for $200. I have not accepted the payment, Jody. I'm going to let it ride. You think I'm making a mistake here?
What's the bet?
It's like, okay, let me find it. The
Oh,
exact
no, I mean, what is the?
Niners win Super Bowl.
Oh, no, I mean,
Let
I'd
it
rather
ride,
have
right?
the math dictates you got a 25% chance, but I
Yeah.
mean, there's probably a way you could. There's probably a creative way you could hedge it, but nah, I'm not generally a fan of when they get nervous and try to buy things back. I mean, it would be a nice little profit for you, but somebody made up a really strong bet. I don't know who it was. I saw it on Twitter last week, and the bet ultimately failed. But they made it was something like a $50 bet of first touchdown scored. It was all tight ends, right?
Yeah, and they had all tight ends.
Right, and he had almost $1 million at stake had it happened, and they were trying to offer to buy it back from him, and someone in the comments said, you can get over passing up on $500 because that's what they were trying to buy it back for. But you could never forgive yourself for passing up on $1 million. So
yeah, I remember reading that comment most well.
Yes, I love that logic there. It's like, yeah, I missed out on $500. You shrug it off. Oh well, but $1 million, yeah. So it's the same argument here. I mean, the grand, that's nice, but like Billy, what are you going to do with $150? I'd go ahead and go down with your boys.
I'm gonna let it ride. I think I just want to ride the Niners all the way out.
Yeah, another thing, I got an article. My weekly picks. I'm 7-3 through the playoffs so far. I'll publish that in the morning. But another thing that I looked at was, and Brock Purdy, the 4 teams that he's faced so far that are top 10 in sack percentage. Those are three of his 4 worst fantasy outings came in those games. So, it's another reason that, I feel like the Eagles can potentially give them problems. But I think, in short, the 2 biggest edges for these teams is San Francisco's ground game. And, Miles Sanders and the Eagles aren't bad. The vast majority of their ground game, the biggest threat for them is obviously Jalen Hurts. But that's San Francisco's edge, whereas Hurts is the edge for Philadelphia at quarterback. Sorry, I know.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Brock Purdy's your GOAT. So it comes down to something like that. These teams are evenly matched. I'm going to lean on the quarterback.
This is a nice little comment here by Giselle. He's using all the money that he won in all the leagues this year. Remember, he won 5 out of his 6 leagues.
Yeah.
And he's going to the NFC Championship game, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's fantastic. Is he an Eagles fan, or is he just going because?
I don't know, Giselle. If you're, you got to let us know who your team is, Giselle. If you're an Eagles fan. Here's a question. Actually, we have: if the Eagles blow out the Niners, does Purdy still start Week 1?
I think if this kid somehow guides San Francisco to a Super Bowl title all the way, at that point, he's going to be the starter. But if they fall short, whether it's Sunday or in the Super Bowl, and let's just assume that Trey Lance is healthy, I think they'll at worst they'll have an open competition, for the spot. They committed a ton of draft capital.
Now, is it an open competition or is it truly open?
I think it would be not truly open. I think it would be open, quote unquote, but
Purdy's job to lose.
Yes, that's how I would look at it. Clearly he's a solid fit for what Kyle Shanahan wants to do. Trey Lance, in the limited window that we saw him as a starter this year, other than the athleticism, there were some concerns about about him as a passer. So, and now he's coming off of a torn ACL. Isn't that what he did? He tore his ACL. Did he break his leg?
No, I can't remember. I think it was a broken leg.
Either way,
it was not an ACL. I think it was his leg.
A leg injury always a concern. If it was just a clean broken leg, that sounds right. Actually, it's amazing how you can forget those many things. It seems like that was 2 or 3 seasons ago. But
broken ankle.
Broken ankle. Well, yeah, that should be something that's 100% healed by the time.
Yeah, they just and they announced actually late December that he had a second surgery on it. So it looks like the first one had some complications.
Always a problem. That's never a good thing to hear. And
when you have a mobile quarterback who has an ankle injury or ankle surgery, it's not a good thing either. My opinion is for this comment here is, I think right now it's already currently Brock Purdy's job to lose. I think that he has done enough to kind of cement himself as the quote unquote starter heading into OTAs and minicamp and then into camp. Now, I think that he may be on a shorter leash per se, or they may find creative ways to get Trey Lance involved in the offense. I could see them, utilizing package plays like the Saints do with Taysom Hill, and I've said that a couple weeks ago. When, if you remember right, I think it was in November after he went on like his 4-0 start or even 3-0 start. I said this kid's going to be the starter week 1. I liked what I saw with Purdy, and again, biases aside, analysis only. I thought he had the skills needed in order to run the Kyle Shanahan offense.
Well, it has been impressive to see a 6th round rookie who wasn't even supposed to probably even be active at all season come in. He is able to read through progressions.
Yep.
He's able to look beyond his first read. It's a trap that a lot of young quarterbacks fall into, just dumping the ball off to the running back, the safety valve at tight end. But he reads through progressions. He's Brandon Ayuk has looked.
Gets to his 3rd and 4th look sometimes.
Yes, Brandon Ayuk's been one of the main benefactors of Brock Purdy taking over quarterback. At least it was before Debo came back and started taking a little bit more of the looks away. But it's really really interesting situation. And again, it just I feel like that's a trend. What we're seeing from Taysom Hill, it's worrisome to me from a fantasy perspective that it becomes something that more creative, clever coaches utilize. What it does, it could potentially take away from a lot of quarterback plays and lead to a lot of fantasy problems. And in particular, another thing to keep in mind moving forward is the NFL is going to be much stricter with their concussion protocol moving forward. So I think you're going to see a lot more quarterbacks be called off the field just taking hits or getting their head knocked into the turf. So, the value of having a 2nd and sometimes even a 3rd quarterback on the field that can come in and play, I think it's going to be even more important.
So in your opinion, if you're the Niners, I have my beliefs. I want to hear yours here. Would you try to trade Trey Lance and roll with Purdy and Jimmy G? Would you try to trade Jimmy Garoppolo and roll with Purdy and Lance? Would you trade away both of them and maybe grab a veteran backup?
Well, Garoppolo's contract was rewritten. He's a free agent.
Correct. But he was, he was going to be a free agent last year too. Look what happened. They finagled things around and they reworked that contract, but not anything is impossible in the contract world in the NFL.
Jimmy Garoppolo is standing to, he's potentially going to make the 3rd or 4th highest contract on the open market this year. It's not a great quarterback class. I'm expecting Lamar Jackson will, get tagged in Baltimore. So that puts Garoppolo up there as one of the more coveted, completely available free agents. A team like, I don't know, the Jets, Carolina's in QB purgatory right now. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess it would depend on there's no way that San Francisco could come anywhere close to getting back what they traded to get.
Yeah, the farm was traded away.
You're talking about a guy who has, 2 years now, kind of underperformed. I think what we were all expecting, and now he's coming off a pretty major surgery. And like you said, complications from it causing a 2nd surgery, that's troublesome. So, I think their course of action would be if Brock Purdy's the guy, if he's named their starter, I think you keep Trey Lance not only as an insurance policy, but like you said, as someone who can come in and take away some of that red zone throws, or come in and they can find. Kyle Shanahan can certainly find creative ways to use him.
Okay, let's run through the lines and I want you to pick on these 3 lines. And then we'll move on to the Cincinnati and the Kansas City game. So San Francisco 49ers, Philadelphia Eagles. SF is plus 2.5, Phillies minus 2.5. Which side you got?
Oh, I'm on the Eagles.
Eagles minus 2.5. Okay. I'm going to take the Niners plus 2.5. Total is over under 46.5, both 110. Which side are you taking?
I was like you. I kind of lean towards the under. It's like, 2 really, really strong defensive teams. So, my lean would be, the under here. And like I said, I'm expecting Philadelphia's pass rush to come up and cause problems. So I have questions if the Niners are going to be able to score enough points in this game. So the under feels like the right play here too.
Okay, and of course the money line bet. You're taking Philly probably at minus 145. SF is plus 125. Does the juice at least deter you from taking it?
No, I mean you don't want to. The 145, it's not necessarily a great play. I'm picking one or the other. I would prefer to. I prefer the minus 110 at 3 because I feel, fairly confident that the Eagles are going to win this game. So I'd rather take the line.
Okay, let's move on.
Assume that they win by more than 2.
Okay, let's move on to Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. This line has flopped. It started off right after last Sunday. It started off with Cincinnati Bengals -1 as of today, and these numbers are on DraftKings Sportsbook. Everybody, Bengals now as of today are +1. Interesting that it flopped. I think that the news of Mahomes being out of the walking boat and walking around may have altered the line. Anything else that you think may have altered the line?
No, I think the main thing is the ankle. But Cincinnati's gotten the better of this little rivalry here pretty recently. Joe Burrow's never lost to Kansas City. I think in looking at it. I actually looked at it, and I have even more extreme lineups at what I looked at. I don't know, was it National Football Post, whatever? But it's been a 5-point swing from the open of 2.5 points.
2.5 to 2.5 on a lot of books.
Yeah, at the maximum, it was 2.5 for the Bengals. I think it's kind of stagnated more close to what you said here recently, with the Bengals being small 1-point favorites. And
yeah, the DK line was pretty conservative. I have seen 2.5-point lines on other books. Mm-hmm. If you were able to get 2.5 on each side, it was a pretty good opportunity to hit the middle, which was nice. But -1 and -1 is not that big of a swing. But
it would have been fun to have made play forward at the exact time it would have been a pick 'em. That would have been really, really interesting.
So Mahomes' ankle. I mean, we saw him after the injury. Not mobile at all. Didn't look the same. The offense was pretty stagnant. He 100% relied on Travis Kelce and everything short and intermediate. You can't imagine he's going to be very mobile this game. I mean, I was having doubts he was even going to play, honestly. So it's promising that he's out there on the field. I have doubts and I have questions, but what's your take on Patrick Mahomes, his mobility, and how does that affect this game?
Well, it's certainly going to have an impact on it. And I have to assume that we're not going to see any Patrick Mahomes scrambles at this point. And that can really change Cincinnati's defensive approach. And this is a really, really talented Bengals defense. First off, they've been paramount to why the Bengals have been able to get the best of Kansas City in this rivalry. They won 3 in a row, including this very game last season. Remember, Cincinnati won it in overtime in Kansas City. Overall, the Bengals certainly trending in the right direction. Other than San Francisco, it's the hottest team in football. They've won 10 straight. They've been 13-3 against the spread when you go back to week 2. And not to mention, if you look at the rivalry between these two teams, and this goes back several years, of course, Cincinnati's actually won 7 out of 8 against the Chiefs. So I understand why there's so much interest, in Cincinnati in this particular game. First and foremost, Billy, like you said, is Patrick Mahomes' ankle, but at the same time, it's hard to have a lot of confidence in Kansas City's pass catchers. I think, despite the fact that Patrick Mahomes had an amazing year, can you imagine, all things being equal, if he still had a Tyreek Hill to maybe open up the defense and throw the ball? Who knows how fantastic Mahomes could have been in 2023.
It's interesting looking at the statistics for the last 10 games. So if you look at just the spread, Kansas City's been horrible versus the spread. They're actually 2-6-1, so they actually pushed once, but only two wins against the spread here in the last 10 games. Statistically on the offense, we all know that Kansas City's a powerhouse. Number one in total yards, number one in passing yards, number one in points scored. The running game has always been kind of the weakness for the last couple of years for Kansas City. In the last 10 games, they're 20th in the league in rushing yards. Defensive side of the ball, they are 11th in yards allowed. And again, this is last 10 games, folks. Rushing yards, they're 8th. Points scored 16th, takeaways 24th, so they're not taking the ball away a lot. Where on the other side of the coin, we have the Bengals, who are 8th in total yards on the offensive side of the ball. They are 5th in the passing yards, 29th in rushing yards. So kind of a similar tale here, not running the ball as well as other teams. Points scored 7th and turnovers 4. So not turning the ball over as much. And then we have the defensive side for the Bengals, total yards 16th. Overall passing yards 23rd allowed. Rushing yards 7th. Points scored 6th and takeaways 9th. So if we had a healthy Mahomes, you see the offense and the strengths that they have in Kansas City. We don't need to talk about that. It's obvious. But we look at the defensive side of the ball, and that's where Kansas City is. I mean, that's where Cincinnati has been beaten is through the air. I only give the slight lean this game to the Bengals because Mahomes is banged up. I mean, we could see anything could happen. That could be tweaked. That could be re-injured.
Well, where do you see the line with 100% healthy Patrick Mahomes?
I think it's more like, minus 3.5 or minus 3.
I think you'd have to look at it as higher than 3 because generally, Vegas gives the home team 3 points. So on
exactly.
a field, they'd be saying they're the same. I think 100% healthy Patrick Mahomes would be worth at least 1.5 or 2 points in this game. So, yeah, I would expect that's, about right, 3.5 to 5 at the absolute most. 5 seems a bit high. In particular, like I said, the Bengals have been playing out of their minds here recently.
Okay, let's take a look at the lines. So I'm going to have you pick the lines here. Bengals +1, Kansas City -1. Which side do you like?
Well, Billy, let me finish thinking like what my thought process was here. So yeah. I looked back at last year's AFC title game, and it kind of, the Bengals ran 27 times for 116 yards. They ended up, the game went into overtime, but they ended up with a time of possession of over 35 minutes. Their whole game plan in that game was to keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. And it makes a ton of sense that's the exact same approach that they would take this year. Keep in mind the Bengals are 8-2 against the spread on the road this season, been 6-1 against the AFC. It's the number 7 overall defense, like you said. But what's been interesting for me is that because of that defense and, because Cincinnati, they can run the ball when they need to. The unders hit like 11 out of the last 15 games for the Bengals. So I'm combining, the biggest advantage here for either team is probably Cincinnati's defense, and now you've got a pretty hobbled quarterback. So I don't have a strong enough feel on the spread to really make a strong play. If I had to choose, I think, the reports were that Patrick Mahomes practiced in full today, and the local media indicated that he looked pretty good. Like it was hard to even tell that he is suffering from a high ankle sprain now. Take that with a grain of salt, of course. That's the local media. They're not necessarily going to let out
too much.
Exactly. But forced to pick the spread, I feel like Patrick Mahomes is 7-1-1 against the spread as a home underdog. So, and I feel like, Andy Reid has also been good in that element too. So I feel like, if I'm forced to pick, I'm going to take the home team. I think that the Chiefs finally are able to, get over this small little struggles that they've had against the Bengals. And I think they're going to, possibly win with a late field goal or keep it pretty close. But if I was forced to pick, that's the way I lean.
So you're going Kansas City -1 right now. We're on opposite sides on both these games. This is interesting. We're usually pretty similar in our thought processes.
Everyone's taking the Bengals, and I totally understand why. But this is why I said, I don't have a strong play on it. I'm more interested in the under for, the reasons I said.
Yep.
It's a receiving core the Chiefs have that is uninspiring. It feels like a talented Bengals defense is going to be able to possibly double team Travis Kelce, which is going to lead, I believe, to a lot of running in this game, which is why, again, we saw in the AFC Championship just last year that was Cincinnati's approach. 27 runs. It led to 35-plus minute time of possession, and I think that they'll try a similar approach. And, with a potentially banged up Patrick Mahomes, it feels like, especially with the over-under in this game is actually higher than in the NFC game. So I feel like we're getting a lot of value on the under.
Yeah, there is some value on the under, especially with the injury. And you look at the Bengals' last 4, they haven't even come near the 46 mark, or what's the line? 48.5? 48 now. So the line's at 48. They haven't come near that in the last 4 games. I mean, we had Buffalo game 27-10. We had the Baltimore game 24-17. We had New England game 22-18. So those are all, again, a little bit more of a defensive matchups as well.
The Chiefs are 2-7 on the overs at home this season. It's been like one of them weird things. Like they show up, their offense seems to go bonkers more on the road than it does at home. Oddly.
Well, interesting. Okay, so I took Bengals. You took Chiefs. We will each took the -1 and +1 line. Let's go ahead. And we both took the under at 48. Money line, just straight bet. You still going Kansas City?
Yeah. It's a game. Look, I'll release my article in the morning. I got to finish editing it, but it's something that I would kind of lean. I like the unders to play in this game. I probably would lean away from the pick, but forced to pick for fun's sake, yeah, I'll take the Chiefs.
Okay, how about the Maui Madness? We have 2 weeks left, so technically, if you have not entered Maui Madness over at FFWC, you can purchase your 5-packs now. You can purchase even more if you'd like, but you have this week and next week, so it's 2 weeks combination. So it's the last week to enter for you. The winner wins a free trip, all included, to Maui. It's going to be airfare for 4 up to $1,000, and then a nice hotel trip there. I had a team, I think, in 5th or 6th, Jody. I don't think it's going to make it now.
You know what? I just entered a lineup this week for Maui Madness, and it's all Chiefs and Eagles. So, I'm putting my money where my mouth is when it comes to that. So,
do you have any playoff best ball sweats? Any stacks that you need?
No, the best ball draft that you and I did 2 or 3 weeks ago here on this very show. I knew it was not looking good, even though I was in the lead after the round 1. I lost too many guys, and the only prayer I had in that particular format was a Dallas stack, and we saw what happened to that last week. So
yeah,
my only objective would be to stay out of 4th place.
So I have 2 sweats left, really, that are all that I think really have a chance. One of them is a Philadelphia Eagles stack with a Kansas City stack. So it has Jalen Hurts, it's got Kelce, it's got all 3 running backs for the Eagles. Nice. It has Pacheco. It also has Devonta Smith. So that one has a real chance. And then I also have a Niners and Kansas City stack. So it's Joe Burrow. I got Christian McCaffrey. And then I went through. I did not get Jamar Chase. I had T. Higgins on that one. I had Tyler Boyd. I had Hurts. I had Brandon Ayuk. And then I think I had the Niners defense and kicker. So real chances on both of them. Now, if it ends up being either Niners versus Kansas City or Philadelphia versus Cincinnati, both these teams are probably dead. But if I can get one of those outcomes, I'm liking my chances, Jody.
That's awesome. Hey, Billy, I want to ask you some. I normally shy away from writing up player props, but in my bets pick article, there was only two games to write up, so I figured I'd actually look at some player props. You wanna pick some?
Yeah. Which game you want to look at real quick?
Oh, both of them.
Okay.
I'm throwing them in an article. I wanted to see where you would come out on these. I'll
okay. Go ahead and spit them out, and I'll let you know what side I like.
Okay. Isaiah Pacheco, over 44.5 rushing yards. That's a -113 bet.
Over 44.5. Have they ruled in Clyde Edwards-Helaire yet? I haven't seen any news on that.
Have not read anything about it.
Okay, so I'll just assume right now he's not playing. If he's not playing, I like the over. If he's in, I probably.
That's probably why the line is so low, because
Yeah.
it was blown through that 9 of his last 10 games.
Yeah, I still like the over, I think, because even if he's active, I mean,
Right.
we saw him, what was it, 87 or 90 yards last week? I don't remember exact number off the top of my head. I took the over last week as well.
12 for 95 last week.
There it is. Yeah. So I took the over last week. It cashed. I'm going to take the over again. I still like it because
I love it. Again, my approach to this game is, more looks for the running backs in this game. In particular, you're not going to see Mahomes can get out there and he can run a little bit, but I don't.
Well, that's the thing is Mahomes not going to be mobile either, right? With the ankle injury.
Right.
So they're going to have to rely on the running backs a little more.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I like it. 44.5. I'll take the over, Pacheco. What's the next line?
How about Jerick McKinnon? Over under 30.5 rushing yards.
Ooh, I don't like that one as much. I like him more on the receiving prop line.
Exactly. I love the under on that. McKinnon.
Yep.
I can't remember. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but he's failed to rush for even like 20 yards in like 3 out of the last 4, something like that. They're using him more, more and more as a receiver. And the point you made here was quite clear.
So Jerick McKinnon here, rushing yards,
30.5.
Yeah, no, it had 6, 4, 7, 52, 22, 51. Yeah, I'm taking the under. Even with a non-mobile Mahomes, I think that's Pacheco's job. And like I said, I have not seen anything on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'll touch base on that tonight. But if he is in, that's even a bigger under for me, because now they'll work him in as well as Pacheco on 1 and 2s, where McKinnon's going to maintain that third down role. And if that was passing, I would be more onto the passing yards. But I don't like the rushing stat for him.
How about a couple of touchdown props?
Oh man,
won't go over all
the most variable stat in the game. Let's do it.
How about Jalen Hurts plus 128?
Anytime touchdown. I like that, actually. Yes, I take that. Okay.
My favorite one though is AJ Brown. This is a situation where the squeaky wheel gets the grease. AJ Brown touchdown is plus 155.
Yeah.
There's a receiving prop like 69.5. I really like.
And San Francisco secondary, I mean, that's where they're beaten, right? 20th the last 10 games.
This is not fantasy, but they gave up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. So this is a secondary it can be vulnerable.
Oh yeah, and we all know that's where the Niners are beat, is the secondary. It's the front that kind of disguises the secondary and makes them look tougher than they really are. I mean, Ward is good, but the rest of them, nothing to be afraid of. I like that one as well. Is that it? You got more lines for me?
I'll release it tomorrow morning when
I like the prop lines on the fly right here.
Yeah, you do that to me a lot of times where I'm like, oh. So I was like, let me get Billy back. But I made them easy because to me these were like really obvious picks. Like, ooh, I really like this one.
Well, that's the beauty about this is like when we're doing this, right? Like, I'm fairly new to sports betting. I'm learning more of the terminology. I'm learning more of the nuances because it's a different language and it's a different game than fantasy, 100%. Like, I can write projections all damn day, but applying it now to sports betting, there's a science and an art to it at the same time. And I'm trying to find that rhythm here. I've been doing like this lately on sports betting, like I'll win, lose one, win, lose one. So it's like I was up like 5 units in one game, then I'm down 3 units the next game, right? And it's like I rate when I feel like I'm going to have a great week or a great day, and it's like, oh no, here comes the next game. So I'm trying to fine tune that betting.
Playing like against the spreads and all that. I mean, a lot of people, you see bragging of how they've gotten 70% or something like that, which is impossible. And I'm not saying that for short stints that people can't do that kind of thing, but overall, I believe the number is 53%. If you can beat 53% against the spread consistently, then you can make money. Gambling, I mean, you can make money, but it just goes to show just how incredibly difficult it is. When it comes to gambling, a lot of logic quickly vacates people's minds. I have a friend who swears up and down that I should go to the casino with him because he's got a new system in roulette. And I just simply told him, that's a hard pass because roulette is 100% a game of chance. It cannot be beat long-term with any system or in any way. If it could, it would not be available at any casino anywhere. So he may think that short-term he's doing okay or that he keeps walking away from money. Long-term, absolutely impossible.
Yeah, all table games are negative EV outside of poker.
Or if they didn't, if they would not exist if they were there.
All right, folks, that's it. Good luck in your championship matchups. If you're in a playoff contest, best ball, Maui Madness over at FFWC. I'll throw the link down inside the show notes so you can join there. We got the final week here. You can join there, win a free trip to Maui. I know I'm going to throw a couple more in this week as well. Looking forward to the games. Jody, always a pleasure, my friend. And we'll see you all back here next week, folks.